City of Ocean Shores Planning Commission meeting to order. It is Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. It is 2 p.m. We're in the Ocean Shores Library on Point Brown Avenue in Ocean Shores. Roll call, please. Commissioner Barr.
Present.
Commissioner Barry.
Here.
Commissioner Bricker.
Here.
Commissioner Kern.
I'm here, but on Zoom.
Okay. Commissioner Wallace is here. Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Okay. I would like a motion to excuse Commissioner Bees, who is absent today. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Barr, motion.
Second. Commissioner Bricker, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Oh, Commissioner Kern, have you been sworn in?
No.
Okay, so because of that, you'll be able to participate but unable to vote.
Okay.
Okay.
How do I get sworn in?
You have a visit with the city clerk.
Oh,
You
okay.
should have gotten an email. Did you get a welcome email?
Yes, I did.
There's directions on how to email her and
Okay.
set up a meeting with her.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Super. May I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Commissioner Barr, seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular City of Ocean Shores Planning Commission meeting on August 13th, 2024?
I make a motion to approve the minutes, August 24, Bricker.
Commissioner Bricker makes a motion.
Commissioner Barr, second.
Commissioner Barr seconds. All in favor?
Aye. Hey,
Okay,
Don?
so
Don, can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry to interrupt. Does approving a motion, is that considered voting?
Steve, it is actually.
Okay,
So when we get into discussion, I'll ask if you have any thoughts.
okay, thank you.
Super, thanks. Public comment. Any comments from in the house? Yes, ma'am.
Sent an email out yesterday. Did you receive those?
I did not receive any email, ma'am.
I sent it out to the address and from that city.
Hey,
You didn't get that? yet?
I did not, so,
Yeah, I sent it to the correct. Excuse me for that, but
that's okay.
it says it was sent to the
Okay.
public comments for the planning. commission.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's what it says on the
Yeah,
webpage.
That does, yeah, I didn't get that. So unless it came specifically to me, I wouldn't have got that. So that probably goes to the city clerk.
To forward to you the way, because it's. Okay.
Correct. No, that's fine. Did you want to read that?
Well, I just have a concern about something that I'm not sure if that's on your agenda.
It is on the agenda, so why don't you explain your concern and we'll go from there? Uh-huh.
This is regarding your ordinance, amending section 1750.210 and creating a bunch of more ones, and this is regarding, changing the divisions, which require work is allowed in all the city divisions. And we presented it at the last board council.
At the council meeting, yes.
The questions, I just didn't understand was the purpose was to change the code for all of the divisions that this code would apply to. And does it apply to single wall, the ADU? It references ADUs.
Yes, so,
Can an ADU be a triplex of 650 square feet?
no, an auxiliary dwelling unit is a unit separate from your primary residence.
Yes.
That can't be any more than 800 square feet or 40% of your lot size.
Okay.
Now, what I'm going to present again this evening at council is when we were looking at that, we discovered that our code is out of date. And so there's an RCW that says we cannot limit who rents an ADU. So right now it says in there, and I'll paraphrase here, that it can only be occupied by family members or a caregiver of someone in the primary residence. And that code, according to the RCW, I don't know if I've got it right here in front of me, but says that a city cannot limit who resides in an ADU. So that will be on the council agenda this evening as
There
well.
was a paragraph in your reference something, this shall not apply to dwellings described under section 17.04 and to row houses and other common wall residential developments.
It will not.
She's referring to 17.50.210, which is actually the 650
Oh,
square
okay,
foot.
so
We're getting rid of the schedule that had all the different division numbers had different square foot. So that's what she's referring to.
Okay, so the
not
chart,
ADU.
okay, so the chart goes away. And the minimum square feet of any residence in all zones will be 650 square feet to simplify the code.
Well, other than one ADU next to, if I could build on my home, in my lot, I can rent it out for a period more than 30 days, has to be considered long-term.
That's correct. That's the
And-
stipulation.
That I cannot build two 200 square foot units there with a single wall and rent two different groups. I can only rent to one group.
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that resident.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that was my concern,
Yeah.
is that,
Only one ADU is allowed on a property where there's a primary residence.
okay, and the ADU is a single rental.
Correct.
Period.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Peter, you already said no. It's good to see you though.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
Jim, what's up?
I'm almost,
Sorry. What's up?
I don't have any questions.
Nothing?
Nothing today.
Oh, geez. Okay, all right. Any questions from afar? Don, do you have any questions for us today? Hey, Don, you
Yeah,
got
can-
anything
yeah,
for us today?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
We can now.
Yeah, thank you very much. I did see that, those questions that the citizen just gave to you. Apparently they didn't arrive. And I think they're very important, and I didn't really get, there was 10 questions on what I saw. And I don't think all of them were addressed. So I wonder if you could look at that and maybe pick out some highlights, because it's gonna be coming up at tonight's council meeting. And those are my only questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Don. Yeah, I've not had a chance to see this. Will this amendment apply to all divisions in Ocean Shores? Yes. If so, is a requirement of any, is this a requirement of any state or federal law? This is a state RCW. Is this a requirement? Does the law require it to apply to every division? Yes, it does. Does Ocean Shores already meet these requirements in some of our divisions? No, we do not. Will this amendment allow multiple ADU/rental units in all division? It will allow one ADU on any property given the 40% rule. If number 5 is a yes, will it allow single wall units with individual title for each unit? Will it allow rentals in a division that has already been single family? Well, the answer is no, you can't allow multiple ADUs in number 5 there. If number 6 is yes, which it is not, there will be no single wall units. Has the planning commission discussed the need to have either a garage or storage unit for each ADU or rental? No, we have not. You have mentioned that this change will result in the opportunity for more affordable housing. Does Ocean Shores already have divisions for more affordable housing? We don't have quote unquote more affordable housing divisions, But one of the things that we did talk about in changing and getting rid of the chart and going to 650 square foot minimums is that may provide more affordable housing. If these amendments are not required by law and the builder wants to build more affordable homes, ADUs or rentals in restricted divisions, can the builder ask for a variance? Well, I never want to get in the middle of anybody asking for a variance. It's not, it's, you know, that's beyond my pay grade, as I would say. But it's clear that you can only have one ADU per property of no more than 800 square feet, as long as it complies with the 40% rule. I hope this answers the questions.
Yes, can I
John?
ask one more question while I have
Of
it?
course,
Pardon me?
of course you can. What do you got?
Okay, thank you. This is sort of related, but I'm in California near Palm Springs. And a major issue in that city right now is the concept of a co-owned home. And I wonder if a co-owned home is a home that is purchased by a corporation and it's transferred to a firm. I think they're in San Diego. They're called Pacasio. And what they do is they turn that single family home into a timeshare that's owned by up to 8 people. Is that issue ever coming up in that issue come up in Ocean Shores with co-owned single family residences that are, in effect, are converted to a timeshare? And how would the commission look at those?
This is Marshall with the planning department, Don. Thanks for the question. We currently do not have any timeshares applied to a single family residence in Ocean Shores that I'm aware of. But we do have multiple multifamily structures within the high density multifamily zones that have been condominiumized. And then we've also got some of that same type of structure in the B1 zones that I'm aware of currently. And we have not had any issues, and there has not been any discussion about applying this concept to a single family residence to date.
Okay, thank you very much, because that's exactly what's happening in the city of Palm Springs. A lot of citizens are against that, and it's before the city council, I think, right now. And I will send you some news clippings from a local newspaper about how that's happening. And yes, there are single family homes, not multi-family dwellings, that are turned into timeshares. And apparently you're saying that's not happening in Ocean Shores, or at least not now. Thank you.
Basically a fractional ownership, then is what basically what it is.
Yes, it's fractional ownership.
Yes.
Interesting.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Marketing/theme for Ocean Shores. Now, I've been asked to put this on the agenda. And I expect that at some time this fall, we will have a town hall on this topic. So as we go forward, I know Commissioner Barry, you sent me an email talking about welcoming towns to retire on the Pacific Coast. I have captured that. I will put that in my folder for this. And so what I'd like to put out to anyone within earshot, if you have any ideas, any comments, you may submit them to me and I'll put those in our folder. I expect that we'll have a town hall, and if we decide not to, I may look to have a subcommittee of the Planning Commission similar to what we did for biking and walking. And so I may be looking for volunteers for that as we go forward. But if you could send me any ideas that you might have, I'll be sure to include them as we go forward. Does anyone have, any commissioner have any ideas that they'd like to share today on marketing and the theme of Ocean Shores?
I would, Mark, since I was looking at it before, I was assigned to look at it before. So previously when we talked, I looked at different cities that had marketing in the hand of Quotathene, Leavenworth, and other areas, and all those communities had a very strong business association, either a chamber of commerce or something, and the businesses were very involved in it. So when I was reviewing this before, a resident brought to my attention, and I looked into it more, that the LTAC gave $70,000 to an organization called the Ocean Shores Marketing Coalition.
Yeah.
And I have the information here from it. And I think I'm suggesting, I'm gonna read what they're about. I am suggesting that before we do anything, I think we need to lay some groundwork down.
Mhm.
And maybe the first thing we do is get a hold of this group, and maybe even maybe you and I can talk to them, or we can invite them, a representative to this meeting, to share some ideas. But this group consists of Dave Robbins from the Grey Gull, Jason Mersman from Oyhut, Steve Buck from Ace Hardware, Buck Electric, the movie cinema, Ron Lambert of Bennett's, and Joe, probably gonna,
Lumedico?
no, it's Greg Tish
Oh.
of Too Cool Sportswear.
Okay.
So these are all heavy hitters in town and apparently from what I've seen, they look like they have successful businesses here. So what they're saying, here's their mission, or what they've said, and they have, not only have they received $70,000 just recently, they have received money in the past, LTAC money. So this is government money. So I'm thinking that, since money's going their way, we might as well find out what they have in mind.
Right.
It says, since our last submission, we have done a great job to set up social media accounts and begin posting basic information about our city. We are extremely pleased with the results. Our Facebook page has 752 followers in the month that we have been posting, and Instagram has 58 followers thus far. The vibrant, energetic branding designed by local Gavin Miller of Miller Design and Branding is ideal for attracting the young, active demographic. More importantly, we have been seen by 17,000 unique people in that time frame. Our biggest engagement was from a post that listed events scheduled in Ocean Shores in 2024. This post garnered 153 shares. Users are clamoring for this content, and paid reach will increase the out of area guests that this content will be served to. We are currently talking with a firm that will manage the majority of our content, the advertising and procurement of assets for advertising our area. Not knowing the scope of what they could offer us, we underestimated the cost of such a partnership. This is the reason that we returned to ask for additional funding to cover the gap between our original requests and the estimated sum of $133,000 to finish out 2024. We have observed the work of this agency on Experience Westport, a campaign much like ours. They have also worked with clients around the world, such as Engelberg Tourism in Switzerland and Visit Sitka. Their style is dynamic and eye-catching, and we look forward to working with them to shine a light on all that Ocean Shores has to offer. So apparently, they're already dealing with a marketing company and looking to bring in another company, it sounds like, to get a website. One of their goals is to get a website going. They don't have one yet, but then there's very little information about this group online. But to me, and the person who did the application was Jason Mersman from Oyhut. So I think before we do anything as far as present, I think we need to get a hold of this group. And to me, I think this could be a partnership that might be worth looking into, because they're already got a start on. And I also think maybe we could even invite back the group that was here at our meeting a couple months ago, that it's the Ocean Shores Public Arts and Awareness Initiative, that gave us some ideas of, they're trying to maybe get the town as a retro look or something. Maybe between that group and this group, That's what I think it's gonna take, is some different organizations to come together.
And that's why the mayor wants to have a town hall. Because what we have found is that, and what we know just by human nature, unless you get community buy-in on anything, it goes nowhere. And so I think it's important. It worked with Chinook Park. It definitely has worked for our biking and walking. So I think that concept where we have a town hall, we do some brainstorming, we have a list, we have a survey, give people an opportunity to respond using the city website as well as the library. Both of those places worked really well in both of those cases, as well as those that are already working on it. A combined effort, I think, is what it's going to take for us to come up with anything that we can hang our hat on, if we can at all, but at least that's kind of a roadmap to get us going. So
I'm thinking that maybe we ought to get a hold of these people, maybe have a little game plan before the town hall.
Well,
meeting,
I'll
so
see.
Maybe we could, present
yeah,
some rough ideas prior to.
yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I just know that what I've been told is that's the game plan. So that's how we're going to proceed. We certainly would like to hear from them. There's no doubt about it. And we can invite them to our meeting if they're willing to come.
Do you, if you want, I can try to get a hold of somebody here, maybe get some information on this group. and
Yeah, the more
see if
information
they
that
would
we
be-
can get, the better off we'll all be. Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
Don?
Anybody else?
Don? This is Steve.
Yeah, Steve, what do you got?
Well, I'd like to know if those documents are available that Commissioner just referred to.
This LTAC, the funding request that I just read off.
And the accompanying other materials.
The LTAC fund, this request from Ocean Shores Marketing Coalition, I got from the city's website
Okay,
in the city documents somewhere. It took me a little while to find it, but I found it. The other one that I had mentioned, the Ocean Shores Public Arts Awareness Initiative, they actually were present at one of our meetings here a couple months ago and gave all us commissioners a little 2-page handout. So, yeah.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the next thing on the agenda, if no one else has anything, is membrane structures. And again, I was asked to put this back on. I had not planned on putting this back on the agenda because I thought we were done with this one. But because Roy Simmons has provided us a roadmap for what is acceptable and what is not for success. So we have kicked around Ocean Pores does not meet the requirements as a permanent structure. Corks and taps, which he provided pictures last time, is an acceptable one. Yeah, you weren't here, so. And then he also provided, thank you. He also provided pictures of the garage, which will be opening up very soon. So these are examples of,
The ones that were attached to the last agenda.
yeah, they're on the last agenda if you look at them. And so those are successful items for structures that attached to businesses. Las Spirigia, I know I probably just, all Italians just rolled over. They've received a permit. I drove by there because I hadn't noticed any structure yet, but I do see that they have outside seating now and maybe they'll put a structure on. I don't know. I don't see one. So, but Roy was saying that they do have a permit for one. And then if it works well for them, they will do something of a more permanent nature. So given that, we also were told that Ocean Pores, which has been the focal point of this discussion, and that was done during COVID, is still safe until council ends the COVID rules. And so until council ends the rules in which Ocean Pours was allowed to do what they're doing, it will remain. So as far as I'm concerned at this point, this topic has been covered and is now done. Any comments? Any commissioners? Yes.
I can, first of all, I don't agree with the statement that says that the structure at Ocean Pours does not meet code. It does meet, first of all, our code has no reference to membrane structures whatsoever. If you put in membrane in our code for a search volume, it comes up one word, one time in our code, and that's regarding a roof. So if you go to this, so we're relying on an IBC code, International Building Code. Part of the code states what the requirements are for a membrane structure, the building itself. That structure meets the code for that, or it did at the time that it was constructed. Talking to Roy, there's no argument on it. The code that he's referring to, and it's a very subjective code, is there's a different place in the IBC that states what structures can be used for specific purposes.
Yes.
And it is really subject to interpretation. It's not very specific, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna take his word for it that his interpretation is correct. An attorney might find something different. So.
Duly noted.
Okay, but if we're going to say something about, that these are quote not permitted, then we should have something in our code that states such, because there's nothing, and if you type in the word tent, because people refer to as this is tent, almost every reference in our code for tents are basically camping tents. And I'm not here or there for the Ocean Pours structure. My conversation all along has been, I want to put that aside and let's talk about these structures in general.
Right.
And it seems like the last meeting you guys talked, I watched the meeting, it was all revolved Ocean Shores or Ocean Pours. I think that we should look and see if, I think there's some purposes that could be some uses for membrane structures. I mean, the biggest problem is with the Ocean Pours one, and Roy's interpretation is, there's not a problem with his interpretation, but basically he's interpreting the usages are that because it's used by people in the general public, that's why it's not a permitted use here. But I think there could be some uses for them. And I don't know if somebody came that had a storage facility or open storage lots, and I want to put up a membrane structure for inside storage for boats and RVs, no heat, no power. Is that permitted?
I agree with
I
your.
would think it probably is because it meets the IBC code.
I agree with your assessment that there is a place for membrane structures. Okay, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, but it's not up to us to decide which one that is. If someone applies, then and planning department can make that determination. I don't think it's us to say one way or the other based on, just like the Italian restaurant down the street has put in an application. Well, it's not for us here to determine the feasibility of that application. That falls to Marshall and to Roy. Marshall.
If I could just add a little bit about what where the code mentions tent structures or tent-like structures in the code where it comes into the planning department side. They make reference to like carnivals, revival tents, and those kind of things. And those are, in all those instances, are intended for a short-term duration with council approval. It doesn't even get approval by the planning department. It has to go to council for approval of the siting of those particular tent structures. And at the time when we denied Ocean Pours their tent structure outside of the COVID mandate, it was based on that interpretation.
But yeah, but those tent structures, they are stated as temporary, and when you see a carnival tent, they're not metal framed, they've got a pole in the middle with ropes holding them. And that, so it's, and the fabric's different, it's not.
Yeah, we didn't get into the
It's not a
weeds.
fire,
Yeah.
it's not a fire retardant fabric like they're, you know, it doesn't meet the IBC code.
Right. That was the
So-
closest thing that
Right.
we had in the planning code when somebody comes to the planning department for a feasibility. Does this structure, you know, fit and is it allowed? That code was the closest thing that we had to what he was proposing.
That's why I was saying that we really don't have something very specific for his situation over here.
Yeah.
And if he wanted to spend the money on a good attorney, they could really twist us around. But that's up to him.
Well, I don't know if I agree with you, but that's okay. As Roy said, membrane structures are for 180 days. And this guy's gone
Not
way
what the code
beyond.
says. That's not. what
That's
the
not
code says.
Roy's
I
interpretation.
read it again, that's right, it's not, as long as it meets the IBC code for fire and that, they can be considered permanent.
No, it doesn't meet the code for,
It's the structure itself meets the building code.
yeah, but not for the intended use.
But that's his, but if you read the part where it talks about intended use, it's not, it's very subjective. And it's really up to a specific building inspector or official to kind of decide that. Okay, it's not really, it's not definitive.
Well, it doesn't, the way he uses it, it does not meet the code. He brings in electrical cords. That's not
Well,
code.
that's a totally different code.
Yeah, but
that's
what we're
totally
talking about is the use of the membrane structure.
But.
And how he's using it.
Has nothing to do with the membrane structure.
I agree with you on membrane structures have their place,
Mhm.
but not there. I think it's wrong. And you said it,
It's an opinion. that
Yes,
you
it
think
is.
Wrong, and I really, and
As
I
is
don't,
yours.
and I don't really, I'm not either way on it. I could care, I could care less if it's there or not. Matter of fact, I'm leaning more towards not liking. I'm just playing the devil's advocate with what's written here, that there's potential that
there is a,
He could get an attorney and an attorney could, and it could be interpreted different.
there's also
Because we
potential.
don't have anything specific in our code.
There's also an issue with if there was an issue down there and somebody got hurt. And there are a lot of people know that he has extension cords there. He brings in heaters in there. And that's not, you can't do that. The city could get sued.
That's what.
And I think it's time for the city to take action.
Violations. That's a different, we're talking, that's a difference that has nothing to do with the membrane structure. The electrical
Oh.
is a separate issue, and I agree with you 100%, because I've seen all the extension cords. Plus, he's got a portage on in the back, which I don't think is code either.
It's not code.
So, no, I'm not defending him. I'm defending the use of the membrane structure and what the code, what the IBC code says versus what our code actually doesn't say or lack of.
Well, I would say on interpretation, many codes are open to interpretation, not just that, as well as most other cities have interpreted to be the same way, which is why there's only a handful of cities that I've been to recently where you see any of them being used in that venue of usage. Now, there are some that still do. I would say the majority of building inspectors and building officials probably interpret it in a very similar fashion. The question that I have is more around the COVID proclamation, and that is if we're saying that because Ocean Shores has not lifted that proclamation, then why isn't it being put out evenly for everything? Why is it businesses are still open? Why is it we're not all wearing masks? No offense there. But if the proclamation is still in effect, why is it just being cherry picked for that? I think that's a big risk for Ocean Shores to say, well, it's lifted for everything except for.
So basically, if it's still in play, then if somebody else wants another structure like they have,
Another
Well, how do you
structure,
tell
or,
them no?
or why do we have businesses that are open? So, and Grace Harbor County has lifted it, and
Right.
state of Washington has lifted it. So that would be my concern a little bit for Ocean Shores, is that we're cherry picking a proclamation for a very specific purpose.
Yeah, and that did catch me by surprise when Roy mentioned that last meeting, that as long as that proclamation is still in effect.
Well, technically, we can't be meeting here then, right? Because you're not supposed to have public meetings under that proclamation, I believe.
So,
there's that proclamation.
I'm doing my part.
This room, so.
Correct. Right.
So I,
Steve, you got a thought?
I just have a question. Has Open Pores expressed an interest in becoming compliant?
So they've worked with the building department. They had an agreement that a plan would be submitted. I believe it was March of this year. And that plan has not been realized yet. I'll put it that way.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, well, can we move on that? I mean, in terms of what we can do, or we agree that there is a place for membrane structures. And Roy has provided us a roadmap for success here in the community.
I do have a question.
Yes, please, Marshall.
Are you guys gonna make a recommendation to council to clarify whether membrane structures are gonna be allowed in the B1 districts? Or, I mean, I'm looking at it from an enforcement standpoint for the next guy that walks through my door and says,
I was trying to make here.
yeah. So are you guys gonna make a recommendation to allow these going forward, or to not allow them going forward? Or what can I expect to see coming through my door?
Well, I don't know that, is there a code that is there something we could change in the code? Or is it just something I need to speak to the mayor about and see if he wants to go forward? Or what the legal status of this COVID situation is?
So as I kind of alluded to before, we only have one section in code that talks about tent structures and stuff like that
Right.
in the B1, and that's for special use, temporary type things. If the intent is to allow or disallow membrane structures like this one, which is, falls more into the building code than it does, the other types of tents that are mentioned in that. Do we want to clearly define that and state they're approved or not approved? So we don't get in this cycle of, every time an administration changes or a planning, because the last planning commission was adamantly opposed to having membrane structures in the downtown core. So that we don't cycle back and forth and,
I think it does need to be clarified. Because, just relying on the IBC code.
yeah, the planning department would appreciate some clarification there so that we're able to, confidently answer that question. Can I put up a membrane structure outside my restaurant to improve or increase my seating capacity?
Now, let me ask you this then, if they're gonna put it out to increase their seating capacity. Okay, so now I'm going from, say, 50 people to 80 people or 100. Okay, and by putting up a membrane structure. Now, do you also have to look at their restroom facilities and all that to see if it can accommodate these?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I'm sure I know the example that we've been using, it definitely does not, and
That is the case, and that's why clarification would be helpful. The building, once it's clarified, the building and the planning codes will take over from there, and it will be a change of use if it's permitted by code. And then we will look at, anytime there's a change of use, we look at parking, we look at capacity, the fire code gets applied to that structure.
Right.
There are a handful of things that we look at. It goes around all the departments to make sure that this change of use complies with everybody's codes, fire code, The police department in some cases gets involved to look at security, those kind of things. So if this body and the council decides to make it clear whether we're going to allow it or not allow it, then those other codes will pick up and make sure that we're not, putting overflow parking into the streets and that kind of stuff.
And the Italian restaurant has applied for a structure of some sort. I just drove by. It's not up yet. But it, as Roy said last time, it's for a period of 180 days, no more than.
It's temporary.
And it's temporary, and that's the key, temporary versus permanent. And then she will decide whether or not she was able to generate enough revenue to make something permanent. So that's where we stand on that one.
So, and back to the, this is a little off topic, but so say Ocean Forest takes down their structure, okay, but they have all these picnic tables outside. Does that count as occupancy?
Yeah, seating is seating.
Seating is seating, okay, so even with all their picnic tables outside, they probably, and they have one small restroom.
That's a capacity change, which constitutes change of use, yeah. So we would evaluate, no matter how you're adding that seating, we would do the same thing on a permanent structural addition to that building as well.
Okay, anything else? The next item on the agenda is accessory dwelling units and non-accessory structures. I put it on there just to verbalize that I'll be speaking at council this evening, and ADUs are on the agenda for that, given our discovery of the RCW that made our code outdated. So I will be addressing that this evening.
Are you going to be, are you gonna be mentioning anything else that's included in that same ordinance that we did not?
We have three things in front of the council today. We have the change of 650 square feet, simplifying and removing the chart. We have the 40% rule, the residential lots. And then the change based on the RCW to where if you rent an ADU, it must be for long term. And those are the three.
The only ones you'll be discussing.
Those would be the three that are in front.
Because there is included in the one ordinance, basically creating, it says creating a section 17.50.115 non-accessory structures and I don't have it, but anyways, so it says they're creating this section, which it already exists. And when you read what and it's on pages 21 and 22 of the agenda, it's all red. So it's like it's all new. But if you compare it next to the existing, which is already created, so I don't know how you create something that's already existing. The wording is exactly the same. There's nothing different other than after each statement, like it had A, B, C, each statement said blah, 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 and then the next statement, they removed all the ands and non-accessory on the old one, non-accessory was all one word with no hyphen in the middle. And they changed it. That's all that's changed. So I'm not understanding the logic to it. And I think people need to be clear that that's not something that came through this commission. And I don't understand the logic of it, but why it says it's being created instead of revised.
So you'll find that as you're here longer, a lot of times council will write their own code. It doesn't go through us. They'll just write their own. Sometimes we'll send forward a recommendation, and we have to remember that whatever we send to council, it's purely a recommendation. They can delete, they can add, they can change to whatever the recommendation is, or just say no, right? So we've had a lot of those over the years as well, where we would recommend one thing and council go, no, we think we needed to do it this way. And they're the governing body. We're an advisory commission. So,
I'd just like to go on record that we had nothing to do with that part.
Okay.
Because I'm scratching my head on it.
okay, duly noted. So the next thing is I put back on metal siding in residential zones. Marshall, and this was mainly in case you wanted to revisit it. We talked about it last meeting. I know we gave you kind of a Band-Aid to move forward. Did you want to have a discussion to where we talk about changing the code that would help you?
I think at this point, you guys have given me enough leeway in your interpretation and my understanding of your interpretation of the metal siding accent. That I'm okay with where we're at for now. As technology changes, it may need to be revisited again. My bigger concern is the exposed metal fastener roofing in the residential zones. I was finishing up out on the beach on Saturday, and two brand spanking new accessory or non-accessory structures went by with exposed fastener metal roofing on their roofs. So as it pertains to, you know, the metal siding and roofing discussion, it's my understanding that code enforcement is ramping up their enforcement of the metal roofing, and where we would allow a metal roof with standing seam, which is hidden fastener, and we wouldn't allow a metal roof with exposed fasteners. It seems to me like, you know, we would want to reconsider not changing, but at least give it some thought as to whether on sheds in the residential zones, it would be permissible to use exposed fasteners if they were painted the same and had a similar look. I don't have a preference one way or another. I've got a shop at home with metal fasteners on it. If I had it to do over again, I'd have put standing seam because my metal fasteners are now at the end of their life cycle. And I'm wondering what I'm going to do. But there are a ton of these sheds out there today with exposed metal fasteners in the residential zones. And I just want to make sure that if I go down the road and we start issuing citations and making people tear these roofs off and put new roofs on and whatnot, that we're not going to, a year from now, going, yeah, that was a little bit of overreach. Maybe we should change that. If we want to entertain changing it, let's entertain it now, or let it stand and we'll get to enforcement. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to go either way. But I don't want to get into 2 years of hard enforcement and alienate all my friends.
Right.
And then have the code get changed to allow it because it seems like overreach. So I would like to entertain that at this point. If you guys are, you know, give us some consideration. It's not on the agenda in that format. Because basically accessory and non-accessory structures have to comply with the terms of the R1 residential code, which means no exposed metal fasteners. So I don't know if you need to have a discussion with the mayor before you put this on your agenda to discuss that particular code change. Or if you can make that recommendation, you know, along with some of this other stuff, I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. Well,
But I think it would, you know, be good to have considered that before we put it to bed, because we are ramping up the enforcement right now.
yeah, I'll put that on my list for my next meeting with the mayor.
Much appreciated.
Get to the bottom of it. Okay, the next item on there is camping lots and residential, and I've had this on there for a couple of meetings now, and the idea is not knowing what council is going to do, whether 90 to 120 days. The one thing that caught my attention is if you have an RV parked in your driveway and you have a guest, they can only stay for 10 days, 30 days total, but only 10 days at a time. Now, council has is dealing with that. It's in front of council tonight, so we'll just let them do their thing. They are changing it, it appears, when I went in and looked, from the 10 days to match what they're doing with semi-developed lots of going from 90 to 120. It looks like they're changing it to 120 days that you can have a guest. So, yes, Dan,
I wrote a public comment on that section.
okay?
Richard Wills is the one that wrote this,
Yes.
and Richard and I go way back, so he and I got on the phone. And we tangled pretty good.
Okay,
And I disagree with going to 120 days. It says you can have 2 units. So
correct.
now I can have 2 of my buddies from Arizona come up and put their RVs on my lot and spend the summer.
It does say 2, you're right.
And I totally disagree with that. And on top of that, I can have 2 tents,
Right? Yes,
which I disagree with that. Now, the question is, I think the 10 days may be right, maybe not, maybe 14. I think that 30 days is too light. But I think the length of this stay should not be 120 days. I just have an issue with that.
Okay.
And I did write a public comment.
okay. Yeah, that's what they're going to propose this evening, so it should be interesting.
Can I add to that as well? Because, and I had thought that maybe it might not be too late for us to discuss this and make a recommendation on this point. Or is it totally in the council's hand at this time?
It's in the council's hands now.
Okay, because I don't believe, I agree completely with Stan, right?
Yeah.
When the survey went out, nobody was asked about 120 days for a developed lot. And to me, it's completely different than somebody putting a camper on a camping lot for 120 days. Especially since we're requiring sewer on a semi-developed lot. Most developed lots with a house do not have a sewer connection for an RV. Okay, so you do, and there are some, because I was looking at houses last year together, but most do not. And to me, I think, first of all, the intent of having allowing an RV on a house with a home is for a guest to come spend a couple weeks or something. It's not to have a snowbird friend of yours or something stay all summer parked in your driveway. Or all I can picture is from Christmas Vacation, Cousin Eddie in that old beat up motorhome. I can picture somebody with a homeless friend who lives in an RV. Hey, well, yeah, you can park your unit on in my driveway for the summer. I don't think that's the intent of allowing camping on a developed lot. I really don't. And I think now, I have a question as far as attending the council meeting and public comment. Can us as planning commissioners as long as we don't involve the commission in our public comment, are we allowed to address our personal comment? Especially since we're not going to do a recommendation, which I think we should.
Well, this has come up before, and as long as you're making public comment on something that we haven't done. But you can't go in and if we pass something and you go and make public comment and say, no, I disagree with that.
That's why
And we had that happen.
because we were talking about it here and for some reason, the other 3 members don't agree with us and then that was voted on, then I'm living with what we discussed and agreed upon. But since we haven't,
I would never sit here and tell you that you can't exercise your First Amendment rights. I would never do that. But, as Dan just stated, that would not be, if you go as Steve Berry, citizen, great. Planning Commission member, now that's probably outside the white lines. But I would never say you can't express your First Amendment rights
Okay, so if I show up to the meeting tonight and do a public comment with my own opinion, then it's not an issue. Because I think this is coming real close to using RVs as an ADU.
Well, and as the original intent was to address semi-developed lots. It was not the intent to address
It
developed
was
lots.
never asked for it, and the public hasn't even commented. There was no, it was very briefly discussed at the meetings.
Yeah, and I asked Richard why he did that, and he said, well, I thought I addressed the whole thing. And,
It's basically coming from one council member, but really.
well, it's supposed to come from him and,
And there were plenty, I will disagree with your assessment. There has been multiple council meetings where this has been with public comment, so it's not just last time. It's been at least 3 after the survey was completed. Nicole, when did you complete your survey? Do you remember?
3 or so months ago.
Okay, so there's been at least 3 council meetings where there's been public comment made since the
This
survey.
particular subject, for the development, the lots really has not been discussed.
No, this
That's
is
what I'm referring to.
this is a new concept.
So I would think that if the requirements are the same on a developed lot, meaning you have to have sewer hookup, you have to have this, and has to be parked within your lot, not on the street, not in front of somebody else's house, then I don't know, why should we care?
But if you read the developed lot requirements, it does not require.
But I'm saying that it should, if the requirements should be identical regardless, meaning self-contained, meaning on your own lot. As far as the tents go, they're still only at 7 days, right? Even on a camping lot. So that would be, if we were making a recommendation, that would be mine, is that if you're gonna allow it on a developed lot, that they have to meet the same requirements is on I'll call it a semi-developed lot, right?
That's new.
Because that's really what it is, and that they would have to have hookups for everything. And again, that's just for courtesy of neighbors, because otherwise your tanks are only gonna hold so much. You're gonna be pulling that RV off and on, off and on and off and on that property. And that's a hassle for everybody.
I think somebody who's invested in a semi-developed lot, and put the sewer in that specifically for their camper is different than somebody who has a house and says, okay, my friend, come here and stay for 100.
But if you put in a sewer specifically for that purpose at your house, then you've met those requirements.
Well, then I guess that's another point of discussion too.
Right. But that's what I would say.
That's not what they're proposing tonight says.
So it will be very interesting tonight. Yes, Marshall.
I can just tell you that the first 27 years of my career was spent pretty much inspecting side sewers. And the lion's share of our residential connections to the houses have an RV dump that went in with them. Exactly for this purpose. Maybe not so much for having somebody come stay with them, but a lot of these people had RVs. There's a ton of them. I mean,
I know there are some
thousands.
that done.
There are thousands, Steve. I've inspected them. So they're there, whether they're really visible or not, or whether it's a full station with water power and a sewer hookup there. A lot of them are next to the garage or on the side of the property, 10 feet up from the vent, which was a requirement. But there's a significant enough number that I wouldn't say hardly any. But I would say probably more than half.
I would be more inclined to be in favor of it if they had us, if it was the same requirements, but I still think the intent is different.
I mean, I don't have an RV, but I've got the hookup if I choose to do so, but yeah. Okay, so that's what's coming up at the council this evening. The last item I have on here, I was asked to put on, and these are political signs. They would like us to have a discussion about political signs as not this year, but next year, we will have elections in Ocean Shores. And they would like us to look at this, not gonna be done today, not gonna be done next week or whatever. But by the end of the year, they would like us to have come up with something and gotten to council, looking at political signs. And so as you can see on page 18, it talks about the definitions. Such signs shall not exceed a height of 5 feet or an area of 6 square feet. Must be removed 7 days after the election all over town, where the primaries are over and there's still a lot of signs for people that didn't make the general election. There's such signs are allowed on here. I think is going to be the interesting part of our discussion going forward. Such signs are allowed on city right of way, out of the mow strip zone. Signs may not be placed in any median or any city signpost or utility poles. Sign may not be placed on private property without the owner's permission and shall not obstruct traffic visibility. So there's been a couple of things. Placement has been an issue. And also candidates putting signs on property without permission. That has been an issue. So we've been asked to look at this so we can come up with some guidance as we go into 2025.
What kind of guidance?
Well,
Guidance is there now.
guidance is there now, but it's so I was asked to look at this, have us, the planning commission, look at this because the guidance there is not working as it is written.
Well, wasn't it when they put the signs on that one person's billboard up high?
Yeah, that
That was
was,
interpretation of that.
That's the issue, because the way it's written here and what it says, quote, such signs shall not exceed a height of 5 feet nor an area of 6 square feet. The argument says the sign is the height, the sign itself. So if I have a sign that's 1 foot wide and 5 feet tall, that meets the 6 square. It doesn't say what the height is from.
Right.
And
It
that's
should say the size of the sign.
what it should
itself.
say is, instead of saying, it should say the top of a freestanding sign shall not exceed 5 feet from ground level, is what it should say. But that's not what it can be. The way it's written, it's very poorly written, and it was kind of taken advantage of. And also though, here's another, this is basically, to me, it's referring to a freestanding sign. Now, what's the difference if I have this sign on my house or on a fence versus like they had on that sign? It doesn't say, it doesn't say, I don't see any restrictions as far as anything that's mounted on a house or on a fence. And I see signs or flags draped on fences and houses that are way more than, a standard flag is 3 by 5, so that's more than 6 square feet. And some of these banners I see on a fence are way bigger than that. So what is the definition of a political sign?
well, I mean, it's what is currently in the code. It's there. And so just by this last 2 minutes, you can see why we've been asked to look at this by the end of the year, right? So be thinking about it. We'll put it back on the agenda. We can have more discussions. We're not going to solve this, as you can tell, just in the last 2 minutes. It's not going to be solved in a short period of time. And when I was asked to put it on the agenda, I said exactly that. Now, you do realize by asking this, that this is going to take some time to ferret out, to wordsmith, and to cover as many caveats as we can come up with. Will we get them all? No. But the last election cycle, there were enough issues for them to ask, for us being asked, to put this on our agenda.
What I find funny about this is, before the last election, city council had a discussion about this at the council meeting when there was issues about the sign.
Correct.
And they said that this was going to be addressed right after the election.
Yeah.
And here now it's almost September, and so it's already too late for this election cycle.
Oh, yeah, well, there's no one we have no city council running this
Yeah,
year,
but we got
so
political signs all over the place still, so it does, it refers to.
that's true.
Political signs regardless.
Right, so, yeah, so our guidance is if we can look at this and come up with something that we can have in effect for the next election cycle, so something by the end of the year, so it's on the books, passed by council for the 2025 election season.
Can you just eliminate them? That would be my.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That's not gonna
I
happen.
mean, that could be a proposal. I don't know
That
that.
would fly for council?
I don't know I don't know that you'd get 4 votes on that one, but I mean, yeah.
What I really is out of the public right of way period and only on private property.
Well, I think,
Is there a law that was?
Washington State.
Okay.
yeah, so anyway, so just know I threw it on there so we could have this intro discussion. We're gonna put it back on there again, going forward, and it's, as you can see, it might get contentious, and that's okay. I don't mind contentious. I am all for anyone who has a thought to express their thoughts. Okay, the next thing that we have is planning commission member reports. Any commissioner with a report today? Okay, the only thing I'd like to share is I have a Blue Zones meeting on Thursday. And what we're trying to do is set up for an October 14-mile ride. And Blue Zones is providing a bike maintenance station that will be installed at the convention center over near the Tesla charging stations. So we're working through that. And I'll be presenting, as I stated earlier, at the city council tonight. Public communication, anything in the house?
No, I'd suggest that your idea, getting other groups involved. That's a very good idea, because we haven't done that before. And since you haven't done it before, we don't accept your recommendations, because you don't have the people. in there.
I totally,
That's a very good idea.
thank you.
It's never been tried.
Yes, I think that's the only way we can succeed. Thank you. Any comments from afar? Steve, any
Nope.
comments? No? Don, any thoughts?
I'd like to say something. First of all, it wasn't my intent to attend this via Zoom, but I got sick this weekend, and I thought it would, in the interest of all of you, I didn't want to infect you because you do not want to get what I had.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you for that. But welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you at the next meeting which is September 10th, 2 o'clock.
I will be there.
Super, here at the
I
library.
will not be present there.
Oh, and I won't be either. So, secretary for the next meeting, Dan? Sure. Okay, super. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Bar motions.
Second,
Ricker seconds.
all in favor?
Aye.
Time 3:08.
Nicole,
Yeah.
after this, I'm gonna give a call